Part number 42 in the Transtar 4300 kit is the fifth wheel mounting plate, which is a good representation of a solid or non-sliding fifth wheel attachment. The two pieces projecting forward from this part, I believe, are supposed to represent the legs of angle iron which bolts to the frame. However, the vertical leg is not molded. Here's a fifth wheel installation on a real truck, and you can see where a piece of angle is bolted to both the frame and the fifth wheel mounting plate. This picture of a different truck with the fifth wheel mounting plate removed clearly shows the bolt holes in the horizontal leg of the angle. For the purpose of making this video, I decided to use a similar piece molded in black styrene from another Ertl kit to help show the contrast between the white frame and the added pieces. And this is where some interesting Ertl trivia came to surface. On the bottom of this part, you can see how it says 1977 Victor Comptometer. Although I don't take Wikipedia as gospel, a quick wiki search does indicate that Ertl in 1967 was acquired by the Victor Comptometer Corporation, and then in 1977, another company, Kidde, acquired Ertl when they bought Victor Comptometer. Exactly why this particular part is marked 1977 Victor Comptometer is a mystery. However, it is from one of the S-Series kits, which came out around 1977 when the real trucks were introduced, so it may be a case of repurposing existing tooling. Out of curiosity, I took a look at some of the original issue Ertl kits, such as the 4270 Transtar, whose fifth wheel plate is pictured here, which carries Ertl Company lettering, Made in USA, and the part number 42. This kit predates 1977 by several years, and checking a Transtar II Eagle cabover from the same era also shows an identical part. Here's the same part from the round 2 version of the kit, which is the one I'm building. The Ertl Company lettering is still there, as is part number 42, but the Made in USA in Dyersville, Iowa has been covered up, presumably because of the offshore manufacturing of this version of the kit. And bringing it full circle, the fifth wheel mounting plate from the long-awaited and recently reissued CO 4070 cabover looks the same from the top side, and is still part number 42, although the number is on the parts tree as opposed to the fifth wheel plate itself. Although from the bottom side, the part looks much different again. While it doesn't make a difference in the end use of the kit parts, I do find this kind of trivia and hobby history rather interesting. Regardless of which era of kit part you start with, begin with cutting off the projections on the forward end of the part, and sand the bottom side smooth with the goal of representing a flat steel plate. I chose to fill the sink marks on the bottom side, although this is really not necessary because this part will be hidden from view once the model is assembled. Using the vernier caliper, locate the inboard sets of bolts and transfer these locations to the bottom side of the plate so that bolt head castings can be glued in place, representing the fasteners attaching the fifth wheel. The outboard set of bolt heads will be added later. The next step is to take a piece of appropriately sized styrene angle, in this case 3/16 or 1/88 was ideal, and cut two pieces matching the length of the fifth wheel plate. In this case, the pieces of angle wind up being just under 1 actual inch in length. Now drill 1/32 holes, the same distance down from the top leg of the angle as the bolt head locations are on the bottom flange of the frame. I went with 5 holes, equally spaced, along the length of the angle. Set in place for a test fit, flush with the top flange of the frame, the bottom corners of the angle are just a little bit too close to the suspension brackets, so I trimmed about 40 thousandths of an inch off the bottom leg of each angle. Glue the angles to the underside of the fifth wheel plate, but do not attach them to the frame. We want this component to be removable, both for further assembly work, and so we can keep it out of the way when adding details such as air brake lines and wiring. Lay out bolt head castings on the top, drill down through both the fifth wheel plate and the angle, and install bolt head castings. Once the glue for these is set, flip the assembly over, trim off any projecting shank from the bolt head castings, and glue nut and bolt castings on the bottom side to represent the other end of the fastener. Nut and bolt castings can now be added, matching the locations of the outboard set of bolts holding the fifth wheel down. These do wind up quite close to the vertical leg of the angle, but the visual effect is convincing, especially when seen from normal viewing angles. One fifth wheel plate completed. The fifth wheel itself I'll cover separately because it can be a fun little modeling project in its own right. There are many different variations of fifth wheel plates you can model, and for one example, we'll go back to this picture seen earlier of a sliding fifth wheel installation on a Kenworth cabover tractor. A large portion of the center of this plate is cut away to save on weight. The fifth wheel plate is another good part that can be found in the Kenworth W900 Aerodyne snap kit. The slider teeth have a very similar profile to the truck I was modeling. I cut the part away from the frame, trimmed away the excess, and then cut out the center to match the prototype truck. The width of the plate was extended using styrene strip, and then styrene angles were used to attach it to the frame. Fasteners were represented with sections of 30 thou styrene rod inserted into drilled holes. With an overall coat of gray primer, the effect is quite convincing, and a little bit of weathering will further enhance the appearance. I'll close with one other variation in fifth wheel mounting plates, and that's a plate with the outer edges bent down 90 degrees to match the width of the frame rails. There's only one set of bolts visible on this installation, drilled horizontally through the mounting plate and into the flanges of the frame. In this picture of a fifth wheel removed from the truck, you can see the 90-degree angle on the bent plate at the outside corners. On this AMT Mack R, I'm modeling a similar installation by trimming the kit-supplied fifth wheel plate down to match the width of the frame and gluing it in place. Styrene strip is added on either side for the vertical portions, and in the corner, a section of quarter-round styrene strip is glued to represent the radius on the outside corner of the bend. Fasteners were again modeled by using sections of 30 thou styrene rod glued into drilled holes, and one final operation will be to add some putty on the corners of the quarter-round piece and sand it smooth to make it look like one continuous piece of bent plate. And there we have it, another way that some subtle detail can be added to your model using the stock kit parts as a starting point. As mentioned previously, I'll feature the fifth wheel as a separate piece because these are interesting model projects in their own right.